The moment I stepped onto the dock, I saw her, blazing across the marina like she owned every plank of wood. The HOA Karen, clipboard in hand, pointed at my yacht and shouted, "You're not allowed here. This is an unauthorized docking." I raised an eyebrow, trying to stay calm, but inside my blood was boiling. "Excuse me," I asked, my voice steady. "This is my property." She laughed like I just told a bad joke. "Property? The HOA says otherwise. You have to move it immediately, or I'm calling the cops." Before I could even respond, she whipped out her phone and started dialing, all while glaring at me as if I'd committed a crime against humanity. I stayed quiet, letting her overconfidence grow. She didn't notice the small plaque at the entrance of the marina, the one that clearly said, "Private Marina, owned by Captain J. Lawson," my full legal name. She was too busy rehearsing her little speech for the imaginary authority she thought she had. The dock hands shuffled nervously behind her, unsure if they should intervene. I leaned casually against my yacht, watching her flail. "You really think calling the cops will help?" I said finally, my voice low. She froze for a second, as if she hadn't expected me to talk back. I, she stammered, but I cut her off. "Go ahead," I said, pointing at her phone. "Let them come. I own the entire marina. Every dock, every slip. You can't touch me." Her eyes widened, but she tried to maintain control. This is illegal. You can't do that." Her voice cracked on the last word, betraying her fake confidence. Meanwhile, a few curious boaters began to gather, sensing the drama before they even knew the details. She wasn't done yet. Marching up closer, she slapped a bright orange HOA notice on my front door. "You must vacate your dock immediately. You're violating HOA regulations." I shook my head and smirked. "You do realize this entire marina is mine, right? That notice doesn't mean a thing." She blinked, confusion flashing across her face, like she'd never imagined someone could actually defy her. Then, she did the most absurd thing. She waved me off like a criminal, screaming again, "Arrest him. He's trespassing." A few of the dockhands muttered under their breath, and I saw her phone ready to film evidence for the HOA's social media bragging. Little did she know, every security camera in the marina was recording her every move, and I had a hidden camera set in my captain's office that captured her ridiculous meltdown in full HD. I leaned against my yacht, letting her rage simmer, knowing this was only the first act in a story she would soon regret. Her entitlement was explosive, but she had no idea the storm she just walked into. She stomped closer, still waving that bright orange notice like it carried the weight of the law. "You're breaking every rule in this HOA," she yelled. "I don't care about your ownership papers. I can make your life miserable." I watched her, amused, as she tried to sound threatening. Every word she shouted only made her look smaller in front of the growing crowd of boaters. "Life miserable?" I asked calmly. "You really want to test me?" Her lips tightened, and she glanced around, noticing that people were stopping to watch. Her power trip was losing its grip, but she didn't realize it yet. Then, she did something truly reckless. She reached for the dockmaster's phone and tried to call a fake police line she had memorized from some online HOA forum. "Hello? Yes, I need officers here immediately," she barked, pretending to be official. I didn't move. I let her make the mistake. A few seconds later, I could see the confusion on her face when she realized the number didn't connect to anyone. She muttered, trying to cover it up, but the fake authority was crumbling. I leaned over to the nearest dockhand, whispering loud enough for her to hear. "I hope you backed up that call, because we're going to need all evidence of this meltdown." The dockhand nodded wide-eyed. She overheard it and spun around, glaring at me. "What are you talking about?" she shouted, her fake confidence slipping. I smirked, holding up my tablet. "Every security camera in this marina is recording. Every word, every move. And yes, that includes your little fake police call." Her jaw dropped. The color drained from her face. She glanced at the cameras scattered along the docks, realizing she had no control over the situation anymore. The crowd started murmuring, pointing at her and whispering about how ridiculous she looked. Some even started filming her tantrum. She stepped back, trying to regain authority, but each step only made it worse. Then I added another twist, lowering my voice for maximum effect. By the way, I own the docks, the marina, and the property surrounding this entire area. You just tried to enforce rules on private land. That's trespassing. Her face went pale. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. For a second, I saw the panic in her eyes. The moment every entitled HOA Karen dreads. She had thought she could intimidate me with authority she didn't have. But the tables had turned completely. And yet, she wasn't done. In her panic, she grabbed my yacht's dock line and tried to pull it off the slip, thinking she could at least make me look bad. I caught her hand in one motion, holding it firmly. You really shouldn't touch other people's property, I said calmly. She froze, realizing that her next move could land her in serious trouble. By now, the crowd had grown to nearly a dozen people, all watching the showdown unfold like a live reality show. I stayed calm, letting her flail, but inside, I was already planning my next move. She pulled out another piece of paper from her clipboard, a second HOA notice, this one stamped and supposedly official. This is your final warning, she shouted. Leave now, or I'll have you arrested for trespassing. I took a slow step forward, leaning casually against the yacht, and smiled. Final warning? Funny, because this land isn't just mine. I registered it months ago with the city. Every inch of these docks belongs to me. Her eyes widened, and she muttered under her breath. That's when the dock hand whispered something I didn't expect. Sir, you might want to check your mailbox. I raised an eyebrow, curious, and walked toward the small Marina office. Inside, the mail slot was stuffed with letters and notices, most of them HOA threats. I picked up the top envelope. It had her signature and a big red stamp. Trespass enforcement notice. I laughed, holding it up to the sunlight. So, you've been sending yourself threats? I asked the dock hand. He nodded. She had tried to make me look guilty with her fake notices, but now it was painfully obvious to everyone watching. Karen's face twisted in rage. You can't do this. This is illegal, she screamed, waving her arms. But I ignored her, pulling out my phone. Let's make this fair, I said calmly. I streamed the live feed from the security cameras directly to my phone, showing every moment she had tried to intimidate me. Every fake phone call, every slap of the HOA notice onto my yacht. The crowd gasped. Their whispers grew louder. Some started recording her meltdown themselves, realizing she had no authority whatsoever. Then came the twist that really broke her. I walked over to the marina entrance and pointed at the big metal sign. Property owned by J. Lawson, private marina. The letters glinted in the late afternoon sun. See that? I asked the growing crowd. Every dock, every slip, every inch? Mine. You just tried to enforce imaginary rules on private property. She took a step back, shaking, as if the ground beneath her had vanished. The final blow came when the dockhand quietly mentioned, also, the city just sent a confirmation notice that your HOA claims are null here. They can't enforce anything on private property. Her mouth fell open. The crowd began whispering, some laughing softly, others recording every second. The humiliation hit her hard, but she didn't leave. Instead, she stomped her foot and screamed louder, desperate for control. I stayed calm, letting her self-destruction continue. Each shout, each gesture only confirmed to everyone watching that she had overstepped in the worst way possible. And deep down, I knew the next move would be the most satisfying twist of all, one she would never see coming. Karen's face was red now, a mix of anger and panic. She stomped toward my yacht again, waving her clipboard like a weapon. I'm calling the cops. This is trespassing. You'll regret this, she shrieked. I stayed calm, leaning against the railing, letting her voice carry across the marina. Go ahead, I said evenly. I've got every move of yours recorded. Every fake call, every notice, it's all on camera. Her eyes darted nervously to the security cameras, then back to me. For a second, I thought she might actually run. But instead, she did something crazy. She tried to grab the yacht's dock line again, as if she could physically remove it from the slip. I caught her hand mid-pull and held it firm. You're done, I said quietly. Any touch of private property now is trespassing on your part. Then I walked toward the Marina office, opened the drawer, and pulled out the city registration papers showing the Marina was legally under my ownership. I held them up for the crowd to see. "Check this out," I said, waving the papers. "Everything you're trying to enforce doesn't exist here. Private property, fully legal, fully mine." The crowd gasped again, whispering among themselves. Her panic deepened. This can't be real," she stammered, turning to the dockhand for support. But the dockhand just shook his head, quietly stepping back. That's when I pressed play on my tablet. The live feed from the hidden cameras showed every moment she had tried to intimidate me, slapping the HOA notice, waving her phone for fake cops, yelling, flailing, all of it. The footage played in slow motion for maximum effect, and the crowd couldn't stop staring. Then came the twist that left her speechless. I calmly said, "By the way, the HOA office just confirmed your authority here is completely invalid. Not only do you have no power over me, but impersonating law enforcement or attempting to enforce rules on private property is a federal offense in some cases. You might want to think carefully before your next move." Her eyes widened, and she looked around desperately, hoping someone would save her. But every person on that dock now understood who had the real power. The crowd murmured, recording, whispering, some even cheering softly. Karen tried to storm off, but the humiliation had already set in. She had lost the first battle in front of everyone, and the tide was shifting fast. I stepped back, letting her stumble, her own anger and fear growing with every passing second. The dockhands exchanged glances with me, knowing she had no ground to stand on. And deep down, I knew that the next move would seal her fate completely. Public exposure, legal authority, and the ultimate revenge were all coming in waves, ready to crash down on her entitlement. Karen froze mid-step, her face pale as she realized the entire dock was watching her unravel. She jabbed a finger at me, trembling. You can't do this. I have the HOA on my side." I let her rant, knowing the real storm hadn't even started yet. "HOA," I said slowly, tilting my head. "Do you hear yourself? You're standing on private property, waving fake papers, and trying to scare people. That's trespassing and impersonation." Her lips quivered. I, she stammered, but I cut her off. I raised my phone and tapped a few buttons, projecting the feed from the hidden cameras onto the small Marina's outdoor monitor. Every single move of hers, the slapping of the notice, the fake phone calls, the shouting at me, was playing live for everyone to see. The crowd gasped, pointing, whispering, and filming with their own phones. Then I added another layer of twist. I walked closer, calm but firm. "And just so we're clear, the police were called earlier today to check the Marina records. They've confirmed you have zero authority here. That includes all notices you've posted." She backed up, eyes wide, muttering that it wasn't possible. The dockhand leaned over, whispering, "Sir, you might want to watch this." On the monitor, the live feed caught her trying to remove my dock line again, handing herself another trespassing violation without even knowing it. The humiliation was growing by the second. Karen tried to shout, but her voice faltered when the Marina manager approached. "Ma'am, I think you need to leave," he said calmly, clearly siding with me. She spun toward him, panic rising. "I'm enforcing HOA rules. You have to comply." The manager shook his head, pointing to the signage at the entrance. "This is private property. Those rules don't apply here." I stepped forward, letting the final twist settle in. "And one more thing," I said, smiling slightly. "The city just confirmed that any attempt to enforce HOA rules here without legal authority could be considered harassment. You've already crossed that line." Karen's knees almost buckled. The crowd murmured louder now, some laughing softly, some filming for social media. She had gone from powerful dictator in her own mind to a completely exposed, defeated figure in front of everyone. Finally, she made a last desperate move. She grabbed her clipboard and tried to storm off, hoping to escape unnoticed. But one dockhand held the camera footage ready for law enforcement. I'd step carefully, I said quietly. "One more move like that, and you're on tape for impersonation and trespassing." Her eyes flicked back to the cameras, then to the growing crowd. For the first time, fear replaced her fake confidence. The first wave of justice had landed, and it hit hard. Karen's hand shook as she stumbled backward, her clipboard nearly slipping from her grasp. This isn't fair. You can't just," she yelled, but the words fell flat. The crowd's whispers had grown into murmurs of amusement, people now pointing their phones at her every movement. She looked around desperately, searching for someone to back her up, but everyone, including the dock hands, was clearly on my side. Then she made her biggest mistake yet. In a last-ditch effort to regain control, she stormed toward one of the dock gates, trying to block the exit to make it seem like she was enforcing authority. I stayed calm, letting her run herself into chaos. "Careful," I said, voice steady but low, "because that gate is connected to the private Marina alarm system. One wrong step." Her eyes flicked toward the keypad at the gate, but it was too late. As she tried to push through, the alarm blared loudly, flashing red lights across the dock. Panic overtook her face instantly. "No! Stop! This isn't happening!" she screamed, waving her arms, but the crowd couldn't contain their laughter at the absurdity of her meltdown. I walked slowly toward her, holding up my tablet again. "You see, every action has consequences," I said, showing live footage from my hidden cameras that now captured her running around, yelling, and trying to pretend she had authority. "And this," I added, "is all being recorded. The HOA can't enforce anything here, but impersonating authority and trespassing, that's a serious problem." Her face turned ashen. She glanced at the Marina manager, who was shaking his head. "Ma'am, you need to leave before this goes any further," he said, calm but firm. Karen's voice cracked. I'm just trying to protect the rules." The crowd laughed softly again, whispering to each other about how ridiculous she looked. Then came the final twist for this moment. I stepped back and held up my yacht registration papers, waving them in full view. "And just so we're crystal clear," I said, "this entire marina, every dock, every slip, belongs to me. You just tried to enforce fake rules on my property. That makes all of your actions completely invalid and illegal." She froze, realizing the gravity of her mistakes. Her mouth opened, trying to form a response, but no words came. The alarm was still blaring behind her, the crowd filming, and I let her panic sink in fully. For the first time, Karen understood that she wasn't the one in control anymore, and the first wave of legal and public justice had landed hard. Karen's panic had reached its peak. She stumbled back, eyes darting wildly between the crowd, the alarm, and my yacht. You can't do this. I'm telling the HOA. This is illegal," she screamed, her voice cracking under the weight of humiliation. I stayed calm, letting her meltdown continue. The crowd was fully focused on her now, phones raised, recording every moment. Then I made the move that finally broke her. I walked slowly toward the Marina office, pulling out the full security footage from the past week. Every fake notice, every phone call, every attempt she made to intimidate me was compiled in crystal-clear video. I projected it onto the large outdoor monitor for everyone to see. Her eyes widened as she watched herself, yelling, slapping papers, and waving her phone, looking foolish in every frame. "You see this," I said, letting my words hang. "Every move you made was illegal. Every attempt to enforce rules here was fake. And now, the city has confirmation. Your HOA authority is completely invalid on this property. Any further attempts could get you arrested for trespassing and impersonation." Her lips quivered. I didn't," she stammered, but the crowd didn't care for excuses. They were laughing, whispering, and filming, sharing her meltdown live on their phones. Every attempt she made to regain control only added to the humiliation. Then came the final, most satisfying twist. I pulled out my phone and showed her the live stream that had been uploaded in real time to social media. "Everyone," I said to the crowd, "take a look. This is what entitlement looks like." The feed showed her yelling, waving her notices, trying to grab the dock line, and pretending to have authority she didn't possess. The likes and shares were climbing within minutes. She froze completely. For the first time, She realized that not only had her fake authority been exposed, but she was also publicly humiliated in front of everyone. No amount of yelling or fake calls could fix it. She turned and ran, but not before the Marina manager gently but firmly escorted her off the property. The alarm still blared behind her, echoing her defeat. I stood on my yacht, calm as ever, watching the crowd cheer softly and whisper among themselves. Every camera captured her downfall. Every witness had seen it firsthand, and every dockhand knew the truth. Justice had been served, without violence, without a fight, but with every ounce of entitlement exposed for the world to see. After Karen finally stormed off, the crowd began to disperse, still whispering and sharing videos on their phones. I leaned against the railing of my yacht, taking a deep breath. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by relief. My wife appeared beside me, smiling softly. "That was intense," she said, wrapping an arm around my shoulder. "I knew you could handle it, but seeing it all play out like that?" I chuckled, thinking back to the moment she had tried to call fake cops, slapped the notices, and waved her arms like she owned the Marina. She underestimated us, I said quietly. She thought she could intimidate someone who knew every inch of this place, and who was prepared for her tricks. My wife nodded, proud, but also relieved that our family and property were safe. The Marina was calm again, the docks quiet except for the gentle lapping of water. Yet, the lesson lingered. Ownership, law, and preparation mattered. I didn't fight for this country to be told I can't protect my own property, I said, looking across the water. Land, family, and freedom, those aren't just words. They're what we stand for. The dockhands came over, giving respectful nods and murmurs of congratulations. Even some of the boaters, who had only stopped by out of curiosity, thanked me for handling it with calm authority. No violence, no shouting beyond what Karen had started, just truth, proof, and preparation. And then, the final twist, small but satisfying, happened. A few minutes later, I checked the Marina cameras one last time. Karen's car was still outside, parked illegally at the entrance. By the time she returned to her HOA office, the footage and social media posts had already gone viral. Her reputation, at least in this little corner of the state, was completely undone. I smiled and stepped back onto the deck of my yacht, watching the sunset over the calm Marina. The chaos was over, but the victory was more than mine. It was for anyone who had ever been bullied by false authority, entitlement, or rules that didn't apply. Justice had been served. Property was protected. Family was safe. And one entitled HOA Karen had learned, in front of an entire crowd, that power without truth and preparation was meaningless.